Hello, I'm Richard Vobes, the Bald Explorer, and I'm out on my quest for England, and I'm continuing on my series In Search of Sussex. And with me I have this wonderful and trusty book, Off the Beaten Track by Arthur Stanley Cooke. And today, in this special episode, I am on, if you're following in the book, and you can download it from the links in the description, I'm on chapter 4. I'm going from Hangleton to Poynings to Edburton. And it's an 8-mile stroll looking at the history, landscape and nature on the way. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking that I'm actually out already in the middle of the countryside. But that's not true at all. I'm actually in the middle of Brighton suburbia. I'm in Hangleton.
Hangleton is a residential suburb of Hove, part of the coastal resort of Brighton and Hove. The area was developed in the 1930s, 20 years after Arthur Stanley Cooke had written his book, and the landscape would have been pretty much open downland.
But it's not suburbia I'm particularly interested in. It's actually this old wall, or more accurately, what this wall contains, because this is the start of my walk. I actually started my journey a little further south and west of Brighton in East Sussex at Portslade Station. And the reason I started there, because at the beginning of the chapter and the walk sort of commences, and he says, the road north from Portslade Station brings you to Hangleton Place, a once fine Tudor mansion of the Bellinghams, lying in a broad valley which winds its way to the dyke. And by dyke he means the Devil's Dyke. And it's interesting because it's a good mile's walk, I would say, from the station just to get up here. And if you look on old maps, you'll see, as in this whole area, that this was open land and there was barely anything here except for a few of these beautiful flint buildings, and particularly this Hangleton Place, which is now known as Hangleton Manor.
Hangleton Manor is the oldest domestic secular building in Brighton and Hove. It dates from 1540 and features 16th century panelling and floor tiles, along with Jacobean fireplaces. But now it's a pub. Arthur Stanley Cooke made a sketch of the place in 1911. Also, a drawing of the 17th century dovecot, which is located in the enclosed garden. This is a gem of a place, and once the COVID-19 lockdown precautions are lifted, well, I've just got to go back and have a pint there and explore the inside.
This is rather lovely. Right in the middle of Hangleton is this wonderful meadow, effectively. Buttercups, different grasses, wild flowers, an amazing array of trees around. I've seen ash, horse chestnut, there's a sycamore over there. I think there's a cherry as well. And it's absolutely wonderful. This bit of ground has not been built on, which is lovely to see, and it's on the old maps actually. I think with the road system on here, if I remember rightly. And he walks up to the church, the 11th century church, St Helen's, which is just at the top of this hill, which would have served, I think 11th century, would have served the community that was once here long ago. That's all gone now, and as you can see, we just have the more modern suburban houses. But we get glimpses of the downs, and I'm sure as I go further up, we'll see more of them. Well, this is a very beautiful, humble little church. I think the residents of Hangleton are very lucky to have such an amazing feature in their midst.
I said 11th century because although Hangleton is mentioned in the Domesday Book as a village, the church isn't noted until 1093. It was a rectangular building of 62 feet by 17.5 feet, but was rebuilt in the 12th century and would originally have had a thatched roof. The tower was added in the 13th century. Together, this makes the building the oldest surviving building in Brighton and Hove, apparently. It's built of flint, with the doors and windows and coins faced with carn stone, a favourite of the Normans. And the basic layout hasn't changed since those Norman times.
1916 to 1930, so not very old. 1964. It's interesting, the earliest gravestones that I've seen in the cursory glance is really from the 19th century, not much before that, although clearly the church is far, far older, as we've established. It's a very idyllic place to live now, close to the Downs, close to the main city of Brighton, and you can get up to London on the A23, which goes to the M23. Let's see what Arthur says in the book here. He says that the village of Hangleton has disappeared, and the original village, of course, is referring to, which is up in the northeast, which is in that direction. And now, as we've seen, it is just all these modern houses, which must have started, I suppose, perhaps just before and then after the war, and then much more modern times. He says, from here you can follow the ridge and join the Dyke Road. Well, the Dyke Road, which comes up from Brighton, really, or Hove and Brighton, I suppose, is now Millionaires Road. It's a very, very busy road and just boring to walk on, from my perspective. However, Arthur says, but I always prefer to wander as best I may over the cultivation and follow the windings of the Benfield Valley to the Dyke Station or the farm close by. And the Dyke Station, he's referring to the little railway that used to run up to the Devil's Dyke, the beauty spot, which ran in, I guess, from Hove, somewhere around there, or from Brighton. So there's a footpath just round the back this way, and I reckon that is exactly where he went. Just going to take the weight off my legs for a few minutes, because I've noticed this wonderful barn here, part of Benfield Farm, that's 100 years ago was a working farm, and I believe, talking to the chap inside, who now runs something called foot golf, so basically you take footballs and you kick them around and you put them into a bin-sized hole. There were two elements to the farm, and they had an enormous amount of pigs. So it's lovely to see this amazing heritage barn still here and being utilised for something, even if it's not the farm.
And so onward I go towards the Devil's Dyke, where I shall pick up the rest of my journey next time. Thanks so much for watching.